WNBA television ratings down more than 50%. We should probably do a study on that. I'm not sure why that would be. Wait. Since Caitlin Clark's injury.
The WNBA is experiencing instant regret right now, and it's painful to watch. All-Star tickets just crashed 50% without Caitlin Clark, dropping from $140 to $64 overnight. The league thought they could survive without their biggest star, but the market just delivered the harshest reality check in sports history. This is absolutely devastating. But before we get into this absolute financial disaster, let me know in the comments. Are you surprised that tickets dropped this much without Caitlin Clark? Or did you see this coming from a mile away?
They were selling for $140. I wouldn't pay $140 to watch the NBA All-Star Game. Hell, I wouldn't pay 140 pesos to watch the annual embarrassment in the NBA. Much less paying $140 to watch a product that almost resembles basketball. Who in the hell's paying $140 to watch unknown players play basketball?
Folks, we just witnessed one of the most brutal reality checks in sports business history. And honestly, it's both hilarious and completely predictable at the same time. The WNBA All-Star Game was supposed to be this huge celebration, this massive moment where the league shows off all their talent and proves they're a legitimate entertainment product. Instead, they just got a harsh lesson in basic economics that would make a first-year business student cringe. The instant regret hit the WNBA harder than a freight train, and you can practically feel the panic emanating from league headquarters right now. They're scrambling to explain away this 50% ticket crash. But there's no spinning your way out of numbers this brutal. Let's break down what actually happened here, because the numbers are absolutely wild. Earlier this week, when everyone thought Caitlin Clark would be playing, the cheapest tickets to get into this All-Star Game were going for $140. $140. For context, you can get into most NBA games for less than that. And we're talking about the league that actually makes money.
We do start our show, though, with unfortunate news out of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark announced today that she will miss both the three-point contest and the WNBA All-Star Game this upcoming weekend in Indiana after re-aggravating a...
But here's where it gets really interesting. The moment, and I mean the exact moment, it was announced that Caitlin Clark would be missing the festivities due to her groin injury, those ticket prices started falling faster than a rock off a cliff. I'll tell you who.
No one. Unsurprisingly, once it was announced that Caitlin Clark would be missing the festivities, once it was announced that the only star would be skipping the All-Star Game, ticket prices immediately fell into the pooper, and they have been circling the drain ever since, trying desperately.
We're talking about a 50% drop almost overnight. Tickets that were $140 suddenly became $64. That's not a small adjustment. That's not market fluctuation. That's a complete collapse of demand based on one single player not being available. The instant regret from ticket holders must be overwhelming, too. People who bought tickets at full price, thinking they'd see the league's biggest star, are now watching those same seats sell for half the price. That's the kind of buyer remorse that creates lifelong skeptics of your product. Now, the WNBA and their supporters are probably going to spin. This is just normal market behavior, but let's be real about what this actually means. This proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that Caitlin Clark isn't just a player in this league. She is the league percent
Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA to be down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion, but not like this. A truly remarkable sports story.
Think about that for a second. 1. Players' absence caused ticket prices to get cut in half. When's the last time you saw that happen in any professional sport? When LeBron James sits out games. Lakers tickets don't suddenly become 50% cheaper. When Steph Curry is injured. Warriors tickets don't crash overnight. But in the WNBA, apparently one player is so important that without her, the entire product loses half its value immediately. That's not the sign of a healthy, diverse league with multiple draws. That's the sign of a league that's completely dependent on one person for their success. The really funny part is how the league has been trying to push this narrative that they're bigger than any one player. Kathy Angelbert and other officials keep talking about how the WNBA is a collective effort, how it's about all the talented women, how fans should appreciate the entire league. Well, the market just gave them a reality check. That must hurt worse than any criticism they've ever received. The market, which is the most honest judge of value in existence, just told them that without Caitlin Clark, their product is worth exactly half of what it is with her. The instant regret from league executives must be eating them alive right now. They've spent months allowing rough play against Caitlin, letting refs swallow their whistles when she gets targeted. And now they're paying the ultimate price. Their failure to protect their most valuable asset has come back to bite them in the most public way possible. And this isn't happening in some small market either. This All-Star game is in Indianapolis, which should be a friendly crowd for anything Caitlin Clark related. If her absence can cause this kind of price crash in Indianapolis, imagine what would happen in markets that don't have any connection to her. The empty seats at the skills challenge and three-point contest were just the preview of what's coming. When you can get into professional basketball events for $64 and there are still empty seats visible, that tells you everything you need to know about the actual demand. The psychological impact on other players has to be devastating, too. Imagine being Angel Reese or Asia Wilson and watching ticket prices crash 50% because you're not considered a big enough draw to maintain value. That's got to mess with your head and your sense of worth in the league. But here's what makes this even more devastating. For the WNBA, the timing couldn't be worse. They're right in the middle of CBA negotiations, trying to convince everyone that their players deserve massive salary increases and that the league is thriving. Angel Reese and other players have been out there calling the league's contract offers disrespectful and demanding million-dollar salaries. They've been talking about how they understand business and economics and how they deserve more money because the league is growing. Well, here's your economics lesson right here. When your entire product's value can get cut in half because one player is absent, that's not sustainable growth. That's not a sign of a league that can afford to pay everyone like superstars. The instant regret from players who thought they had more leverage in these negotiations must be setting in hard. You can't demand superstar money when the market just proved that only one person in your league actually moves the needle financially. The WNBA has been bleeding money for 20 years. 20 years of losses, 20 years of being subsidized by the NBA just to keep the lights on. And now, when they finally had some momentum, thanks to Caitlin Clark, this ticket Situation just exposed how fragile that momentum really is. The financial implications go way beyond just this one event, too. If All-Star ticket prices can crash 50% overnight, what does that mean for regular season games when she's out? What does it mean for playoff games if the Fever don't make it or get eliminated early? The instant regret from television networks who signed broadcasting deals is probably setting in hard. They thought they were getting a product with sustainable star power, but this ticket crash shows how fragile that star power really is. The WNBA has been trying to negotiate new television contracts and sponsorship deals based on the increased interest from the past couple years. But if that interest is this dependent on one player's availability, it makes those deals much riskier for networks and sponsors. Imagine being a company that just signed a multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal with the WNBA, and then you see this kind of immediate market reaction to one player's absence. That's got to make you question whether you're getting what you paid for. The international implications are interesting too. The WNBA has been trying to expand globally and position itself as a premier women's basketball league worldwide. But if your premier showcase event loses half its value because one American player can't participate, that doesn't exactly scream international appeal. The comparison to other professional sports leagues is stark. When Tom Brady retired, NFL ticket prices didn't crash. When Tiger Woods had his issues, golf tournament attendance dropped, but not by 50%. Overnight, when Michael Jordan retired, the first time NBA ticket prices adjusted but didn't collapse. This level of dependency on a single player is unprecedented in modern professional sports, and it's not sustainable long term. What happens when Caitlin Clark has a bad shooting night? What happens when she has a slump? What happens when she gets older and isn't quite as dominant? The instant regret from young players who thought they were part of a rising tide is probably overwhelming. They're realizing that their success is entirely dependent on one person's performance and health, which is not exactly a stable foundation for a career. The league has put itself in an incredibly vulnerable position by becoming so dependent on one player, and this ticket situation just exposed that vulnerability in the most public way possible. The media coverage has been trying to downplay this, talking about how it's still a sellout and how ticket prices dropping is good for fans. But that's missing the point entirely. The point is that professional sports leagues aren't supposed to have their value fluctuate 50% based on one player's availability. The fact that tickets are now affordable is nice for fans, but it's terrible for the business model that the WNBA is trying to build. You can't pay players million-dollar salaries when your ticket prices have to be slashed in half to maintain attendance. The instant regret from coaches who thought they could build sustainable programs without prioritizing player safety is probably setting in now. When poor officiating leads to injuries that crash your league's biggest event, that's a wake-up call about priorities. And this is all happening during what was supposed to be the WNBA's victory lap. They finally had mainstream attention, record viewership, sold-out arenas, and celebrity endorsements. Everything was pointing up, and then one injury announcement crashed their biggest event's ticket prices by 50%. The timing with the CBA negotiations makes this exponentially worse, too. Players are demanding massive salary increases right as the market is, demonstrating how fragile the league's financial foundation really is. Angel, recalling the league's offers, disrespectful, looks pretty tone-deaf when tickets to watch her play just became $64 because the league's actual star isn't available. You can't demand respect that the market isn't willing to give you, the instant regret from other star players who thought they had equal drawing power is probably brutal. When the market tells you that your presence doesn't move the needle financially, that's a hard pill to swallow for any professional athlete. The league has been positioning this as progress, as growth, as proof that women's basketball is finally getting the recognition it deserves. But this ticket crash suggests that it's not women's basketball getting recognition. It's specifically Caitlin Clark getting recognition, and the league just happens to benefit from that. There's a difference between building a sustainable business model and riding one person's coattails. And this ticket situation suggests the WNBA is much closer to the latter than they want to admit. The empty seats at the skills competition and three-point contest were just the preview. When you can't even fill an arena for side events, when your main attraction isn't playing, that's a clear sign of where the actual interest level is. This ticket crash just exposed the WNBA's biggest problem. They're completely dependent on one player for their success. The market doesn't lie, and it just told them exactly what their product is worth. Without Caitlin Clark, what do you think this means for the league's future? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button and subscribe for more sports business reality checks.